I think doing the Evanescence song was a huge door opener for not only 12 Stones, but for myself personally. Nobody knew what that song was going to do, or that band for that matter. I mean, we were label mates. For me to be able to do that, I was super excited to be a part of that, and then it just exploded. So it was a weird I won't say bittersweet, but it was like I had put so much of my personal investments in time and energy into 12 Stones and our music and our live show and all these things. And then I go and do a feature for another band, and then I get to just watch that just skyrocket to the moon. And it just goes to show you, it's like you never know what's going to pop and what's not. And so I was very fortunate to be able to do that song with them and have it open so many doors for us moving forward.
So I want to share with our listeners just how incredible the success was, like the metrics on that song. So if anyone listening now missed the intro, Paul is the male, the wake me up, the male. You probably cringe hearing someone else try to do that, but it's the male wake me up vocal on the Evanescence hit "Bring Me to Life." So that's Paul, and so the song Bring Me to Life charted in the top 10 in over 20 countries. It went to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song itself sold over 10 million copies worldwide. It pushed Evanescence to, international stardom. It won a Grammy and was nominated for a second Grammy. That debut album from Evanescence went on to sell over 17 million copies, which makes it not only it's one of the best-selling debut albums of all time for sure, and also one of the best-selling albums period of all time. The song on Spotify and the video on YouTube combined have over 3 billion, not million, billion plays. Uh, Almost no human being will ever experience that level of success. Can you share what your life was like at the peak of that song?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I put so much of my life force into 12 Stones that all of that got just overlooked, and I was now the wake me up guy. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need to be on a coffee commercial or something at this point. I need to get endorsed.
Yeah, there should be some Folgers or Starbucks sponsorships here.
Do that. I need to still get that happening. Somebody the other day told me I think it was my guitar player John. He was talking to me. He was like, "Man, you still need to like start your own coffee company, and wake me up coffee." I'm like, "Man, I should ride that wave for sure." But no, it was phenomenal. It opened so many doors. Like I said, I won a Grammy because of that song. I got to attend the Grammys. I got to perform live on the Jay Leno show. Just a lot of things that we weren't going to do as 12 Stones, not because we didn't want to, but just the opportunities weren't presenting themselves the same way. And for that song to not only be on their debut album, but that was their first single. It's the first song that anyone ever heard from Evanescence. Ended up being a life changer for all of us. I think from the year 2000 to 2010, it was like the third or something highest selling record of that decade, and it was behind like the Beatles' number one album and Michael Jackson's greatest hits and like stuff that is just like a no-brainer to be at the top of those sales charts. But yeah, it was just mind-blowing to watch that star on its ascension.
I remember back in 2003, even then, I would be checking the Billboard charts every week, and the top 5 albums on the Billboard 200 every week for like a year, it was Evanescence, Fallen, it was Eminem, I believe the Eminem Show, 2002-ish, and 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. Those 3 albums were in the top 5, like they never left. And I was like, man, there's no room for anyone else up here.
Yeah, it's pretty wild just to think, like even today, people, if I'm meeting somebody and they'll be, "Oh, you're in a band," and I'll say, "Yeah, I'm in a band called 12 Stones. We've been around a long time," and they're like, "Haven't heard of that," and I'm like, "I sang the male vocal on Bring Me to Life," and they're like, "What? You're and it's like still to this day, you get that reaction from just a song that it's undeniable, and it kind of starts to fall into the category of like the Nickelbacks and the Creeds, where it's like, oh, the Evanescence, and it's like, man, they're still killing it. Like, you can't say anything. They got a legendary lineup in that band. Amy's a powerhouse vocally, with her stage presence, and just as a human being, she does a lot of great stuff. So, again, I'm honored and privileged to have been able to be a part of that. And the way it happened was crazy, but it ended up working out pretty well. So.
Yeah, Evanescence just played the arena down the street from me in Ottawa. So, 22,000 people, and it's 22 years later. And we're going to talk about 12 Stones is on the lineup of two of the greatest festival lineups I've ever seen in my life. And I believe Evanescence is one of the headliners there. I could be wrong, but you guys are back on the same bill as well.
Same bill, same day. So
Oh, that's so cool. Well,
I,
we'll talk about that in a second. So it won the Grammy Award for Best Hard Rock Performance, also nominated for Best Rock Song. What did it mean to you to even just to get the nomination that it's the highest level of acclaim a musician can get, that your country is acknowledging your hard work and your talent. So the nomination and then the win, what did that mean to you?
I meant the world to me. I mean, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to respond to it. Like I was fortunate enough to not only win or nominate and then win, but I got to attend the Grammys and I got to go and walk the red carpet. Nobody knew who we were. No, I mean they knew Evanescence, but
Did
I
you
was
wear a nice suit?
oh I wore a nice shirt and I wore a big blown glass medallion. It was like a hippie gangster chain. You know what I mean? It had like the hemp rope necklace and then it's just
Represent.
galaxy bead. Just trying to stick out and be weird and look different. But I rode there with Dave Fortman and Ben Moody, and Ben dressed up like he was in ZZ Top. He had a big fake beard on, walked with a cane, had all this crazy jewelry on. And I just remember people were like, "Who are you guys?" It was like we did not coordinate our outfits no at once. So
So Ben Moody was the guitarist and songwriter in Evanescence, and I remember being shocked. It's like as soon as Evanescence blew up, he left the band. Um, do you have any idea what that was? Like, hey, maybe once there was success, he could go do something more specific to what his goals were.
I believe there was some personal stuff going on between the members. I don't know enough to have a
Mm.
say, and I also respect their right
Yeah,
to speak on that on themselves. I do believe there's some internal stuff going on, but I think the decision for him worked out. He ended up going on to write
a
songs.
huge songwriter.
Yeah, Kelly Clarkson and Avril Lavigne and just some massive people that. So he's done well for himself, and I don't think it hurt him to step away and find himself. You know what I'm saying? Like Evanescence has always been, will always be, in my opinion, the Amy Lee project. She is such a powerhouse, such a force to be reckoned with that I feel like someone like Ben Moody, who's also fairly alpha and fairly dominant in like his ability to connect with people, it was great to see him step out of a shadow that he didn't necessarily want or need to be in, but that's a big shadow that she cast on the music world, especially when they were blowing up. So for him to be able to gather himself, step aside, and just continue his ascension, it was a cool thing to watch, and I think it turned out pretty well for him.
And it shows how talented he is to go from writing Evanescence style music to writing for Avril Lavigne and Kelly Clarkson. Like, regardless of genre, the guy can write a hit song.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned there's a cool story in how you ended up on the song. So you are label mates, 12 Stones and Evanescence. So I'm like, okay, there's the wind up connection. And then I realized that your producer also produced Fallen, I believe. So there's another connection. So what's the actual story of how you end up there?
Well, hindsight makes it a lot easier for me to put it all together. But at the time, we had our first album out, and we were in the process of writing the second album. And we happened to be up in New York at the Wind Up offices. We were having a meeting about, upcoming songs, what we were doing. And Evanescence had been signed, but they hadn't worked on any music necessarily at this point. And at the time, the president of the label, we were in his office, and he was like, you guys need to hear this band Evanescence we signed, and this is going to be their first single. And they were talking about because this is 2002, I believe, and they were talking about all the big rap rock guys that were there at the time. We got Mike Shinoda, you got Jacoby, I believe Josie was mentioned from Saliva. Some of these guys that
Limp Bizkit.
right. Those are the guys that were doing their thing at the time. And they showed us a demo version of Bring Me to Life, and it had whatever local producer they were using kind of did a mock-up of the part that ended up that I did. And the label was talking about all these guys they wanted to reach out to do this song. And I jokingly was like, well, man, if you can't find anybody famous to do it, I'll do it. Just kind of taking a jab at myself and trying to be funny. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll keep that in mind. I'm like, yeah, yeah, your people are called my people. Sure, sure. And then a few weeks later, we were back home and we were loading up our bus to head to Texas to go on tour with Seven Dust. And I got a phone call from my manager and he said, don't get on the bus. I'm like, what? He's like, I just got a call from the label and they want you to do the Evanescence song. I'm like, really? Okay, yeah. He's like, so they got you a flight. You got to go to the airport right now. Go to the airport. You're flying to LA. You're going to track the song tonight. And then tomorrow we'll fly you to Texas to meet up with the guys to get back to the tour. So I went straight to the airport. I listened to the song the entire flight to LA and just muscle memory, just had to make sure I had my parts ready to go. I got to the studio at like 11 p.m. I'd worked with Dave already previously, so I saw him and the comfortability set in. Uh, the band was there, said hello to them, went into the studio. I think I tracked for about an hour and a half. I went back to the hotel, slept for 2 hours, caught a red eye back to Texas, and uh, and that was kind of the history of the creation of the song. And then I think it was only maybe a month or so later that they called me and said, "All right, you got to go shoot the music video." We shot it in Romania, and then they said, "Also, you got to be ready. You're going to go out back out to LA, and you're going to perform on the Access Hollywood show, and also Jay Leno." And I'm like, "Wait, what happened?" Like,
Come
I,
again?
I stopped at Romania, and then you said Jay Leno, like we're going to be on the Jay Leno show, and he's like, "Oh yeah." So, like I said, I had already had some level of success with 12 Stones, but nothing like this. Nothing like jet setting all over the world, for music videos and live performances and stuff. So it was definitely a whirlwind, it wasn't until years later, honestly, that I found out that there was any kind of disagreement between the band and label about this part. I was just the young, dumb redneck kid that was like, yeah, I'll do it. Okay. I didn't realize that there was a little bit of hostile energy between the label who was telling them, you got to have this part in the song. It's what's popular right now. We think it's gotta make the song more currently relevant. And Amy sticking to her artistic integrity, which I fully support. And I feel like ignorance is bliss for me in that moment, because had I known that she didn't like this part of the song or didn't feel that it was what she wanted to represent the band, I would have never done it. I would have been like, oh, okay, well, yeah, definitely. I'm not, it's your stuff. It's
Stick with
your,
the artist. Yeah.
yeah, like I got your back 100%. But it wasn't until well after the fact that I found out that there was all this issue. And then, the internet being what it is, all the fans kind of turned on me, like I forced my way into their artistic and, their, it just kind of stepped all over it, and it turned into like this, women can't do anything in the music industry without a male. And I'm like, whoa, like, no, no, no. I, I thought I was invited, I didn't know that the label invited me, and that it was not necessarily what the band wanted, because we didn't know each other. We were just label mates and stuff. And so I felt horrible for years after that. And I got a lot of hate for a long time. And I'm like, for a while there, it made me cringe when I heard the song, and it couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. You'd be in the bank and I'm just hearing myself, standing in Blockbuster Video or something, and you're just like, oh man, here it is again. But as the years have gone on, I've spent a lot of time, and I've talked to Amy, and we've talked about the reality of the situation. She never knew that I was getting the level of like pushback as I was. And she was like, man, I didn't realize that this is how this was affecting you personally. I was like, dude, I love the fact that we did this song together, and I'm honored still to this day. Every time I hear it, I light up a little bit. But there was a long period of time there, not long after the song was released, where I was like, every time it gets brought up, I get made to be like a villain. And it wasn't the band's doing. It was a lot of the fans were like, she's an angel, and how dare you go in there and like interfere with her artistic integrity. I'm like, I didn't want to. I didn't even write this part. Like, I just performed it. I showed up. I sang what I was instructed to sing, and that was the end of it for me. And it kind of it took a long time for me to be able to vocalize that without just kind of shutting down. But um yeah, we've grown a lot. I've grown a lot, and our relationship is great now these days. I reached out to her last week and just let her know about the scheduling for this festival coming up, and I was like, I just want you to know we're both going to be there on Sunday. And she said, I like where your head's at. So yeah, yeah, we're all in a good place now. So
And it looking back now, even though maybe Amy Lee, it wasn't her first choice to do that, but looking back with the insane success of that single that propelled a 40 million selling career for Evanescence, you have to say, I think maybe the label knew what they were doing, despite it going against the artistic integrity of the artist.
it's a rare moment that I say a label made a good decision. I
Yeah.
mean, but I, it may be a little biased on my part, but I do feel that that part is a huge thing. I know for a long time they didn't perform my part live in their set, but what was cool to me was the crowd filled in. I got to go perform with them years and years ago at a festival in Florida. I was living there at the time, and they came through and I talked to her and I got to go up on stage, but she had me wait until like the second half of the song to come out. And man, that first chorus came in and it was 20,000 people, wake me up. And I was like over on the side, like, yeah, cool, man. Like it just, it's peanut butter and jelly at this point for me. It's perfect for me. What we did is what we were supposed to do. And it worked out to the benefit of everybody involved, whether it was agreed upon or a planned thing. I think we're all better off now because that happened.
So on the band on 12 Stone social media, there's a video of you getting up and performing the song with Evanescence. That's about 5 years ago. Is that the show you're talking about?
No, that video was filmed in New Orleans. My daughter actually filmed that from me for me. I took her with me, and we played at the Sanger Theater. Well, Evanescence did, and that was a few years after the Florida Festival. But it was the same thing because we had never performed the song. We didn't really do much. We did some touring for like 2 weeks together, but I didn't really do the song much. They had their guitar player John LeCompte at the time. He was doing my part uh, live, and then so when they came through New Orleans, we I realized we had never done the song together where I'm from. So I didn't really even tell anybody. I told my now fiance, she was with me. I brought my daughter, and then same thing. I kind of came out halfway through, and being that it was a hometown and where 12 Stones is from, you could just hear the crowd, just the wall of sound that hit when I came running out, and it's man, it's such a high, such an adrenaline rush to have that where you're just like, wow, man, and they're really here for it. So.